Hello, friends, family, super duper fan followers who have not left after 2 years. That's how long the hiatus has been, two
We're
years
back.
plus. But we're back. That's what's important. Like we never
Yeah.
left, but we kind
Yeah.
of did, but we're back. Just to kind of start on why we're bringing this back. For me, it's an interesting idea to sit together again with someone I
hmm
respect so deeply, someone who I think has a real pulse on the energy, working with so many people, feeling into so many different things, whether it be the collective, whether it be the interpersonal, whether it be your own spiritual journey. And I think we're at a time when a lot of people are finding themselves confused and
hmm
in a good way, I would say, which sounds contradictory,
Yeah.
right?
No, I'm here
But
for it.
yeah, the confusion is like things are changing, man. Things are moving
hmm
quickly and people are feeling that. I think all across the spectrum, whether you consider yourself spiritual or not,
hmm
I think that label isn't really that important anymore because we're all in it together and it's happening. And so we're also both at a point where we're working and we're working with people and we're connecting with, you know, different energies and we're I think we've both become more in tune with the work we've been called to
Yeah.
do and saying yes to it at an interpersonal level and all the joys and challenges and opportunities that brings. And
Yeah,
so
I
it felt
guess,
like a
yeah.
good time to bring things back and give the people all two of them what they've been asking
Give
for.
the people what they want. Thanks, friends.
Exactly.
As you're sharing this, we do have a lot to share, though. Like thinking about this journey over the last couple of years, we're not showing up as the same people. Like I'm not even using the same name I used to use, which is kind of cool. But
You now go by the biggest, baddest one of them all, in quotations, Lena.
yeah,
Like a
yeah.
WWE name.
Yeah, you got to address me by the biggest, baddest one of them all, though. Like,
Of course, every time.
yeah, yeah. And don't you forget it.
Oh, my
No,
camera
it.
just zoomed on me. How
Oh,
do I
I
get
didn't.
it
It
back?
didn't move for me. I don't know. You look normal to
Okay.
me.
Interesting.
No, but that's funny. It took you long enough to get Lena. I'm not going to make you call me something else.
Hey man, I'm good with faces, not names. I
Yeah,
know
yeah,
what you
that's
look like.
cool.
That's what's important.
Dude, it's all good. I'm totally the same. But like I appreciate you talking about this like resounding yes, because that definitely has been a theme. I know for me since I don't know for months now, at least what I don't know 6, 8 months. It has been a wild ride, and I think now at this point where you and I think are saying more of the resounding yes instead of like shying away from the work that we on some level agreed to do. We're like, okay, I'm ready to show up and show up gladly, right? Like, I
Yeah.
realized that I was showing up out of a space of obligation. Like, I felt like I had been like dragged kicking and screaming into this work.
Mm.
And while I kind of was like, that's okay, because that's what it took to get me over myself to be like, you know what? Yes, yes to this. And now, like, I don't know, it's pretty cool. It's been a wild adventure since the resounding yes, but things are landing in a much different way for me, for the people that I'm working with. It's kind of amazing. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to be here.
No, I definitely agree in a number of ways. I've been thinking about the start of my channeling journey because I've had to write an introduction to Yeshua's first book, which is coming out soon. Yay!
Yay.
Summertime. Keep your eyes peeled.
Oh,
Late
it's
summer,
exciting.
people. Yeah, and I'm not in the book at all except for like the very beginning, which is this
hmm
note from Channel, and I had to reflect on how this started and and my willingness or lack of willingness at the beginning.
Hmm.
Uh, and also how that's changed. And it's interesting, I've heard stories of some channels that have had like angels come to them when they were kids and tell them like, "Hey,
Mm.
you're going to be the voice of so and so spirit." And then
Hmm.
there's channels like Paul who just happened one day and
Hmm.
they liked a part of it and hated other parts of it, and it just
Hmm.
became their life one way or another because that's how it was meant to be. Um and and that's not to say Paul doesn't say yes to the work. I mean, Paul Selig, who we're both students of, he's absolutely great at that, but he's self-admittedly was not like, hey, I wanted to quit my teaching career day one and do this full time
Yeah.
instead. And I mean, it was definitely the latter path for me. And I think it's important that it happened that way for a number of reasons. I think number one, that, I didn't and couldn't get an ego about it. And I think that was helpful because that just slows down the clarity of the work. And
Hmm.
the whole point of channeling is to be clear, right? And so
Yeah.
that's the most important piece. And then the other piece is I had to say yes to my own experience, regardless of how other people may
Hmm.
perceive it or believe it or not believe it. Or, channeling isn't really something you can like empirically prove. It's not, I can't step forward and be like, well, here's this essay and
Hmm.
these measurements that show it's coming from, Yeshua, not me. It's, there's no kind of thing you can point
Hmm.
to. Of course, there's ways in which says things that I have absolutely no knowledge of, and he brings
Hmm.
teachings and books that are just done, from over
Hmm.
the course of months. But it's really about connecting to my own experience and understanding that that's the most important piece first and foremost. And I have to say yes to my own experience and the truth of it. Uh, before I can try and do anything else or bring forward the fullness of what I can offer.
Hmm. Yeah, I can totally appreciate that. And you're talking about like how the ego or the personality body can, kind of creep into these things. I feel like channeling for you seems like, at least from where I sit, it looks like something that unfolded very quickly. It was like nothing, and then all of a sudden something, and it was like bam, like all of this. My path to this was a lot different. Like for me, and I was thinking about this earlier today. Like the random loose moments of thoughts. Like wow, I really like things had to unfold this way for me. Like there was a lot of
Mm,
mystery and unknown. I spent years studying something that I didn't even realize I was studying, until like later on. And, I'm just now starting to put pieces together, like understand pieces that, I've been collecting for over, like, I don't know, 20 years now. And it's funny because for the longest time, like I couldn't even have told you who was coming through, and like even now there's like a bit of a reluctance to kind of name what it is because it's like ever evolving. And like I gotta say too, like I love that at least what you're channeling comes through in English. Like I get that in sessions and stuff, like I don't remember if the light language had started when we were doing this before. I think it had. I think it's been going on for quite a while, but I
yeah,
certainly was not wanting to talk about it then. Like I know that for
yeah. It
sure.
was it was early stages. I
Okay.
definitely remember that. Yeah.
Because I know, like the channeled messages have been coming through in sessions for a long time. But even when I'd be like, who are you? Like who's everybody's like, ask
Hmm.
your guide for their name and they have to tell you. And and so like
They
for
have to.
years, I don't know who said that, but like I remember like telling somebody at one point, like I asked for years. I'd be like, what's your name? And they'd be like, mm-mm. Like,
Mm.
mm-mm. And like it wasn't until years later, like right before they actually told me, if you must call us something, that it was like oh, like they're not really wanting to be forthcoming with that right now because of the need to keep me out of it, right? Like when you put a name to something, specifically something that is so vast like that, it really like limits it. It puts it in a box and you bring in your ideas of what you think it should be. And so I think the beauty, like for both of us, because you weren't really sure what was happening quite at first either, right? Like it was like, what is this coming through? And it was like you had to allow it to come through and learn to trust the resonance of what was coming through before you could put a name to it. Because otherwise, then like we get all involved. Like, that's problematic, you know? So,
Yeah, it reminds me, I was channeling once and I think I can't remember if someone asked a question or if it was just in part of it. He kind of mentioned that he liked that I wasn't a scholar of his life. Like,
mm-hmm,
I think I was saying to someone like, "Oh yeah, I actually don't know this story kind of well." He like told a story, and I was like, "I don't really even know this story kind of well. I hope it's
hope it's
makes
right.
sense." Yeah. And someone was like, "Oh yeah, and it reminds me of this, this, and this," and and then he talked about like, well, it's actually kind of good that I'm not a scholar of his life,
Mm-hmm,
that I don't know the New Testament,
mm-hmm,
front to back, that I haven't studied all the historical accounts of the man called Yeshua or whatever. And it's because then I would have had all these ideas.
mm-hmm.
And it's helpful to have a context and to know like the basis of some of the stories. And he's retold a lot of the core ones, the ones that you don't even have to be like Christian per se to know. But what you're saying reminds me of that. It would have almost been harder if I had all these ideas on
Mm-hmm.
like, this is what he said in his life. This is how it unfolded. This is, what this means.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that means. Because part of it is there was seeds of truth in, I think, everything,
Yep.
but there was also 2,000 years of ideas, put on top
Yeah.
of it, and miscommunications and
And
translations and
distortions.
distortions and
Yeah.
human, games of power and of manipulation, and also even good intentions that
Mm-hmm.
just ended up falling short of what was actually said per se. And
Mm-hmm.
so the rewriting of that, not in a way, a rewriting in the spirit of the true meaning of the teachings and the energetic resonance of it, and
Mm-hmm.
and how it really connects, um, has been really cool. And part of that is we have to be open to it, right? We can't
Mm-hmm.
pull all the old ideas from the past and say, just tell me the
Mm-hmm.
right ones and then I'll get it, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, that's something I've been thinking a lot about lately too, is the fact that, I grew up without like no religion, like we were, I'm like, yeah, there's something probably. And then, I may have told you this before, but then when I was like 16, like all of a sudden we were like Pentecostal. We went from like 0 to 60, like real hard. And I was like, something's not right here. And so, like that was my first real kind of experience with religion. And I was like, ew, I don't like this. And so then when I went to college, I started studying religion. So I had a bit of a more, but not like in depth, So I had like the
Hmm.
broad strokes from an academic kind of perspective. And it's funny because, the books that I've been reading lately, I'm just now starting to learn about some of the like historical, like pieces that go into this puzzle. And it really has felt like a great benefit to kind of look through the eyes of babes, like not dragging the
Hmm.
history in to what we're learning now, and like what's coming through in like all of these beautiful and wonderful ways, like all of these, like hypnotherapy sessions and channeled works. And, it's just really incredible. And it's cool to see, well, really more cool to feel the resonance of truth of what's coming in, because it's like, and I think that's where people get a little disillusioned with some of the religious texts, is that they're like, yeah, the seeds are there and the dogma is kind of like stacked on top of it. So I don't know. I think it one is very helpful when you're like in, accidentally like in this like line of, I don't know, reality or whatever, to kind of like come from a place of ignorance.
Yeah.
Which I don't know that I'd normally like argue for that, but I don't know. It feels like ignorance is actually probably not the best word. It feels more like innocence, and that feels really aligned. So I love that for you.
Yeah. I think that it's interesting. I think people will often have spiritual experiences and don't have context for it, and so
Hmm.
they'll move to religion. And I think the benefit of that is there is contextual and
Hmm.
stories that contain these seeds of truth that
Hmm.
people can connect with, they can align with, they can find yeah, that context for what they experience. I think personally, I think the issue comes when, you jump too far into the rules or the
Hmm.
the human stuff that can come with the religions.
Yeah.
And I think what's really powerful about the movement of spirituality today is that we're almost recreating the context of what's possible, what these
Hmm.
experiences can be, what they can mean, how you can relate to them. And I think there's culturally big positives to this. Like, again, you can be someone like me who has this weird background of going from Christianity to Buddhism to like very Zen Buddhism to like agnostic, possibly atheist, and then having and then just finding these kind of teachers like Ram Dass and Alan Watts who point at something
Hmm.
that's a little bit of everything, and then you have an experience of, God or source or spirituality, a spiritual experience. And then there's new teachers, whether they be spirit teachers, whether they be people
Hmm.
like you who can guide with energy and energy work, whether it be people who have kind of dove into ancient texts and traditions and then kind of pulled out the seeds of truth in them and are recontextualizing them in a helpful way. So I think that's really exciting about the time we're in right now,
Hmm.
and part of the opportunity that I think is possible here because of this new movement, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the thing that's most exciting for me is like it feels like people are starting more and more to, I don't know, they've stopped putting God outside of themselves. Like God is not some
Mm,
dude on a cloud, you know?
right.
Like it's like really like recognizing and like giving permission to say, you know what, source is everywhere. Source is within me. It is the source energy that radiates from my soul to my heart, out into the world. And it's, I don't know, it's just like such a what a privilege to be gathered here, like witnessing and participating in this. Like, I was working with somebody today because these are conversations that are coming up a lot lately. And, part of that may
Mm,
be because of my, sudden interest in areas of study, but it's also, not a coincidence that there's this like massive thread running through. It's almost like there are so many of us who are gathering again here and now to really help. I don't know. I've been seeing it as this kind of culmination of energy that creates this force. And it's
mm,
a force that really helps to amplify the light and really um, what is it? Cohesive, magnetizes it into something that is cohesive. And I don't know, there's just such a beauty and a power to that. And I know it's cool because it's just, regardless of like when you look around, like, yeah, there's things that are staticky and there are things that don't feel good and there are things that are like, ooh. And also, like with that, there is this incredible surge of light, and it's just I don't know, it's I've not seen anything like it. And I work with people who are in their like 70s and they're like, I've never seen energy move so fast, I've never seen it like this. So it feels like the culmination of like, I want to say like lifetimes of work. And I don't know, it's just very cool.
yeah, I think it's funny because the two are interlinked, right? The new huge wave of light and this resonant that's coming in, and
Hmm.
also the chaos of, right, the
Yeah.
darkness flailing around. It's easy to see all of the darkness and get disheartened, right? And to see the suffering and the ways in which we as a collective are still choosing
Mm-hmm.
from old ideas and harmful ideas and selfish actions. But at the same time, the teaching we've been receiving as students of the guides and we've been and now even in more ways as we continue our work is that's coming up not as a problem, but as part of the
Mm-hmm.
solution, right? We
Yep.
need to see all the ways in which we've been acting to really move it. And I think part of also the hard uh, thing about seeing all these areas of darkness is you have to recognize they're in you as well.
I am
Any
participating.
yeah, any darkness that another human has exists in you in one way or another. And this is not to say like, yeah, there's someone killing someone and so you're going to kill someone. No, but it is to say that we're of one shared collective and we've all agreed to a place in which these things happen. We
Mm-hmm.
all are at one resonance or another believe that this is a place where there will always be another war. There will always be someone doing bad. There will always be the evil man making the bad decisions, whether he's the president or whether he's the neighbor, throwing stuff over the fence, right? It's and
Mm-hmm.
so part of the recognition of what's happening now is saying this isn't someone else's problem. This isn't
Mm-hmm.
someone else's only action. This isn't just someone else's darkness. Like I am a part of it and I've chosen to come here, which means that there is some resonance in what's happening in me as well. And my job is to heal that in myself
Mm-hmm.
first and then be the peace for others and then amplify, like you're saying, the light so
Mm-hmm.
that when I'm singing in that tone, others hear it and others
Mm-hmm.
can recognize, oh, that's a thing. That's a way to be. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, I didn't even know that was possible. And then
Mm-hmm.
stepping forward each day in that way to help others.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you got to find the balance between, you don't have to stare at the news and watch all the bad things, but you can't stick your head in the sand and
You can't
pretend that the
pretend like it's
world's
not happening.
yeah, you
Yeah.
can't pretend like it's not happening because then
Mm-hmm.
you're pretending like your own darkness doesn't exist either. And
Mm-hmm.
and and I
Mm-hmm.
don't mean darkness in a bad way or to judge it either. That's part of being a human is incarnating with flaws and karma and things to learn. And that's the journey. That's the joy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a beautiful way to help mm, work with the what they call in like the esoteric lens, the plan and purpose, right? Which is all about um, helping Earth become what is considered a sacred planet. So lifting the consciousness of the planet to a space of love. That's the work, right? And so we come here to do that in a lot of different ways. And there are so many of us who've been incarnating here so many times and then turning to worm food in the dirt and like over and over again, with like all these distortions.
Certainly
It's
one way to put
it's cool.
it.
But what's happened is it's actually like literally actually created distortions like within the soil, within the plant and mineral and animal kingdom and within the human species as well. And so, it's one of the things that I've been hearing for a bunch of years now is like there's been an accumulation of energy for lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. And a lot of people now are coming here to release that accumulation of energy. And so people often wonder, like, well, I attended to this. Well, I released this. Well, I did this. Well, I did that. And it's like, yeah. And sometimes you've got like lifetimes of stuff that needs to be let go. But what's always funny to me is like, also that can happen instantaneously. Like you can all just like release at once when it comes into that realization, that recognition. So, yeah. I don't
Yeah, to steal your
know.
metaphor, right? The climbing up the spiral of these
Yeah.
lessons.
Mhm.
And part of it too, I've realized because I've had these things that I've had to face over and over and over again, right? And in different ways, in lesser ways, and greater ways.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because, and I was just thinking about this. each time it really is a refinement of the energy. And if you think
Hmm.
about anything, like you said, that you've had over lifetimes that you struggled with, even just over this lifetime, over years and years and years, even from a psychological lens, it's not
Hmm.
often that you just like, boom, pop it and click, and then you're just the perfect person now.
Hmm.
There's this huge interweaving between what you could call our karmas or our love knots or the ways we're still in distortion. And so you might, unravel one piece of it, but then you have to go to attend to the other piece and then one other piece, and then you come back around and then you can untie a bigger part of the knot. And
Hmm.
so it's funny, I think a lot of people, and it was a question I would ask a lot. I would have these big spiritual experiences on retreats or in meditation or channeling or whatever. And I'd always have the question, well, how do I sustain it? How do I hold it?
Hmm.
Like, I want to be here forever.
Hmm.
And in a way, it's kind of a funny question because the whole point is the unraveling, and then you have to go and rejoin your life and figure out the next thing to unravel. And this isn't to say that it's an endless journey of picking things apart, but it is to say that the journey takes you to the next level or plateau, and then you have to attend to what's still in distortion there so that you can step forward
Hmm.
once again. And even if the things seem like it might be, oh, this old thing over and over again, it's actually those things that are usually the deepest and require the most attending to over and over
Hmm.
become our greatest strengths in
Oh yeah.
supporting ourselves and supporting others and really being the
Hmm.
love and the light. And so
Hmm.
I think that's why we're called to them over and over again, and even after lifetimes to lift them.
Hmm. I think another thing too that I feel like comes up a lot in sessions is this, well, a few things around this. One, the recognition that like when things are coming up again, this doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. Like it's not a punishment to have to address things from the octave where you sit. And so I guess to go along with that, the thing that I think people don't always realize is that when you are invited to attend to something that you've looked at before, you have to remember you're not the same person that you were when you looked at it before. So it's a new person looking at this thing and reclaiming it and re-knowing it and re-understanding it from the level of consciousness that you hold now. And one of the things that one of the ways that I've been seeing this spiral lately is like the stretching of it. And so it's like this lifting or expansion of consciousness and this like dropping down into the depths, right? The depths of what is available for understanding and I don't know, it's just incredible. So we're like stretching, we're becoming like 10 feet tall,
Mm,
And so there really is this beauty to the invitation to refine an energetic thread. And I think the place where it gets sticky for people is when we get in the way of deciding what we think things should be. The word that's
yeah.
been coming in session a lot lately is supposition. When we're carrying
Mm,
these suppositions in from the old distortions, because let's be real, like you were talking about earlier, when we are dropped into this astral field or the common field, whatever you want to call it, like it is impossible to be in it without the inherited distortion. It's like it has been encoded or like the way I've been seeing it is like crusted over like our our like
mm,
true programming, right? And so we've been doing a lot of cleanup, right? We've been doing like think about, I don't know, something gets crusted over. Like I usually see like a wall, like stuff grows over it and then like it gets hard and like somebody dumped a
yum.
bunch of cement on it. It's gross. And sometimes it shows up in people's fields like a creme brulee. So I'm like, oh, that's nice. But often it's a little more dramatic. Crunchy top, soft center. That would be lovely. But dude, I get weird visuals. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know what we're looking at here. But I think and that's kind of the big thing where people seem to be right now is like really examining like the history of things and what we
Mm,
are bringing along from the past and trying to apply to now. But the message that's been coming up a lot over the last couple of weeks in sessions is really that like nothing is what you think it is. Like you actually have no idea what anything is because you are not in the same, like it's not even the like same world, which, I know I don't totally mentally understand that, but the frequencies are so different here. And like the available light has increased and people are really stepping into that. And so, we're in uncharted territory. So if we're trying to navigate by the old maps, it's definitely not going to work, and that's something I think for us to all remember and all to like play with and all to like hold lightly when it starts to feel heavier. We start to feel like, oh, this again.
Yeah. No, I fully agree. And especially off that last piece, I think we have to attend to things until we truly realize that it's not
Hmm.
beneficial to us. And
Yeah.
that can take a while because there's things that we have so ingrained in our personalities, in our ideas of who we are, and our ideas of how we get what we want, and our ideas of what we want and why we want
Hmm.
it. And
Hmm.
and like you said, some of it's not even ours. It's a part of this collective field that we were born into, the parents that we had that encouraged things the way in which we were taught. And of course, like there's a resonance with our own personal karma on what we take on more and more from the collective field. But part of the journey, again, of being human is taking that on, being born into the collective and lifting that
Hmm.
energy so that we can help others do the
Hmm.
same and so that we can be a part of the group, right? That helps
Hmm.
lifts things. And this is not to say that, the special group or anything like that. We're all doing it in one way or another. And
Hmm.
so but it's usually a long road, especially with the things that are the most important to us are
Hmm.
usually the things we hold the most karma with. And so it
Yep.
can be a long and
Hmm.
interesting road to realize, oh wow, that thing was really never serving me. I thought
Yeah.
it was helping me in this way. I thought this is what I wanted. I thought this is what I needed. I
Hmm.
didn't imagine myself being able to be other or experience other or not have this person or not have this thing. And then on the other side, when you do have that realization,
Hmm.
the lifting that comes and the lightness that comes and the freedom
Hmm.
that comes and being like, oh, it really is better. Uh,
Hmm.
and then you can be the truth of that for other people. But if you're still playing with it or guessing or just trying to pull one over on the karma of like, no, I really know it's better. I mean, I want it still, but I know it's better to not have it.
Hmm.
And then you go and try and speak to another, it's just not going to have the same resonance because that's not where you're at. And that's not
Yeah.
necessarily a bad thing. And it doesn't mean we can't aspire to the next step before we're fully there. But if we want to walk in the world and to be of benefit to others, then we have to go all the way through and all the way into it and get to the other side.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I was talking to somebody today, and it was like, she's like, you always say that. She's like, the only way through it is through it. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, that is true. But I think you're right with this need to recognize that, like, oh, okay, we maybe thought we needed that, we maybe did need that, and now oh, that we actually don't need it. And I think along with that is, and I think one of the places where people are really working right now is in looking at that relationship with it. Okay, so now that I recognize this thing, like, how am I holding it? What am I deciding it means? What am I, like, am I allowing the energy of it to keep moving, or am I like getting hooked on it and it's getting like stuck in my field? Because I think this is the point where forgiveness really comes in.
Mm,
And I know, like, for me personally, this has been one of the most powerful practices of all the things. And it often is the simplest things, like the non-ritual rituals and the like, silly little like basic practices that people are like, yeah, I know, because I get it in sessions and I'm like, here feels like a really beautiful place for you to practice some forgiveness with yourself. And they're like, yeah, I know. And you're like, yeah, okay, you may know it
yeah.
here, but it has not embodied yet, it has not dropped in yet. And that's a process, right? Like, and I get it, like, probably just as well as like I have had plenty of need to practice.
You and me both.
you know but it's like such a when we hold in mind that nothing is what we think, right? Like, especially like with the ideas around the idea of forgiveness, right? Because people are afraid of what that means. If I forgive this, that means I let somebody off the hook. Like, actually, no, they're still accountable for their actions. And when you decide that I'm going to forgive somebody or I'm going to forgive myself for this, it doesn't actually mean that you're condoning the behavior that was out of balance. What it means is that you're not going to allow whatever that was to continue to be a drag on your field.
Yeah.
Because when we're holding on to this stuff, the image that I got today was like trying to like drive down the drag strip with your parachute out. And it's
Mm,
like pretty sure they
mm,
open those to stop the cars, you know? Like,
yeah.
not that I know anything about drag racing, but like
No, you're good. You're right.
okay, that's right. Right sport. Yeah, okay. So but that's exactly what it becomes like. And then people are like wondering why they're staying stuck or like not making the progress that they think they should make, which is a whole other
A whole
challenge in
other thing.
itself.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we got to look at that relationship with things. It's time for that stuff to really start moving, to really be like, let it go. There is such beauty and freedom on the other side of that.
Yeah, along those lines, a big practice for me lately has been noticing the push and pull around anything. Because if
Mm-hmm.
I feel a push and pull, then I know that there's some karma there. You know,
Yeah.
if I'm pushing
Mm-hmm.
or I'm pulling, it's the same action, right? And I think an easy way to see this is relationships. You know, if the relationship, there's always the person who is like the, let's say the one who is very vocal and picks the disagreement, and then there's the one who will retreat and doesn't want to be in the disagreement, and it's the
Yeah.
push and pull is actually they're both creating it from both sides, right? The person who
Mm-hmm.
instigates it more and more is making the other person withdraw more and more, and the other person withdraw more and more is making the other person want to get into it more and more,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
so they're creating their own little cycle. And but even in myself, right? And that's a exterior version of it. But even in myself, when I notice myself pushing and pulling against something, like, oh, I don't have this. There's this habit I do that I don't like, or this way I think about things that I don't like. Well, I gotta really like stop that. I gotta push. I gotta end that, or
Mm-hmm.
really pull it of like, oh, I really want to do this thing right now. I shouldn't, but I really want to. It's the same energy, and it's
Yeah.
engaging with the energy of the thing you say you no longer want, or that
Yeah.
isn't beneficial
Mm-hmm.
for you. And
Mm-hmm.
it is harder to just be like, no, I'm gonna put it down. I'm gonna
Yeah.
sit with it. I'm gonna observe it. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
let it come and go, without engaging with that energy, without engaging in the push or the pull. I'm not gonna say like, no, this thing can't exist. I can't deal with it at all. Or I can't be like, no, I need more of it in my life. I want. It's both sides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting too because when we're looking at that kind of push pull, it's often particularly, and I find this a lot too when we're looking at like people who are holding like physical discomfort or dis-ease in the
Mm,
body. And it's like there's often this, and this is not a judgment. I spent plenty of time here myself, but there's often this really strong desire to get better or to like make it go away or to like really what you're saying is that this experience is wrong, or this experience is of the light, or this experience should be something else. And
right.
what that energetically does is it actually, the thing that you're trying to get rid of, like anytime we put that force that you're talking about, it creates this like energetic repellent, and the thing will like hook into the field. And so, like, I guess the technical energetic thing that you're talking about is like when you put it down and say, like, no, this is okay, it gives it space to unhook and then release from the
Mm,
field. Like when we start practicing this radical permission, like there's this thing, I don't like it, that's okay. Right? There's this thing, I wish it were other, that's okay. It helps us start to like soften on these things that feel really grippy. And I had to do that like yesterday, right? Like we were I mean, this is something I've been practicing for a long time and I still have to practice it. So, and it very much is a practice, and we continue to refine, and the degrees to which we grip things starts to relax, and it relaxes more and more, and we find ourselves more in this flow state, in this receptive state where we're just kind of like shown where to go, what to do, how to, when action is required. So that's kind of like the space that we will be holding more consistently, but it's also not a problem that it's not super consistent for people yet, because there is a real beauty in the journey. Like, what magic, you know?
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's important to remember is this isn't a destination. Like this
Yeah.
life is a journey. It's not, the we all end up back home one way or
Hmm.
another. Like there's a truth to everything, and it is that source is, and we're already of source. We don't have to, earn it. We don't have to run to the finish line. You don't get anything more for getting there early. You know what's you know what's funny? I think at the beginning of not even at the beginning, for a long time in my spiritual journey, I wanted to be ahead. I wanted to
Me
like
too.
run in the race. I wanted to be up front. I wanted to be the one who is gonna get there and,
Me
do it in
too.
this life and do it ASAP and all the things and throw away all the
I'll
karma
show
and be the
you.
best person. Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to just be the most perfect. And man, at this point in my life, I look around at the world and I'm like, I really want to be in last place. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not even joking. I wish everyone else was ahead of me. And that's not saying that maybe they are, but I really want everyone else to be ahead of me because then everyone else is going to be peaceful, like more peaceful. Everyone else is going to be more aligned. Everyone else is going to be able to
Yeah.
help me along. And like I
Yeah.
would much rather that than to be at the head of the pack any day of the week, my friend.
I was like,
Like,
ooh, I'm gonna drop back here.
does someone want to help carry me? No, I'm
Yeah.
feeling a little tired.
Oh, that's funny. Like, God, yeah, for years, like I held that same kind of thing where it's like, gotta do it, got you, like like this ridiculous pressure, and
Mm.
like looking back on it, like I have a lot of love for that version of myself. She was a hot ass mess, like there was so much going on. I mean, I'm still kind of a mess, but like in a much more delightful way now. Oh, it's so funny. Yeah, because the truth of it is like no one goes till everybody goes, like it's like we are one. And that's like the whole point of like all of this work is like removing the sense of separation and returning to oneness, and like like chipping off the layers of all of the stuff that have gathered, like all of the distortions, all the old ideas, all the history, like deep down into the primordial goop of like what is encoded in our very structure, So I don't know, it's kind of amazing, but yeah, that's funny. Um, we do have a lot in common.
Yeah, no kidding. I know we were siblings in a past life. We know this
Oh
already.
yeah.
We know this already. And it's
Yeah.
funny too because I think, looking back to on that urge, I think there is something, while it's not in the most accurate or in full truth, right? I think there's something still beautiful about wanting to, devote myself to something
Yeah.
or to, it gave me motivation at times when things were hard,
Hmm.
I needed something to propel me because it was tough all around. And so, I think we can often look at our darknesses and only see the shortcomings of them. But I think if we look back to, there are times where it was helpful in ways or it was needed in ways for where we were at then.
Hmm.
And
Absolutely.
that doesn't mean that it's something we need to take forward. It doesn't mean it's helpful for us today, but it means at a time it might have been there for a reason and part of our learning. And we also release things when it's time as well. So we don't have
Hmm.
to, force things to release before it's
Hmm.
ready either.
Yeah. Yeah. There are a couple of things that brings up, and we'll see if I remember them both by the time we get to it. But the first one is like this idea of like progression. And this came up in a session today. There were a lot of sessions today, so that's always like nice and rich for, a podcast. But it was like, what if you actually got rid of the idea of progressing, of the idea that there is a progression? And like, on one hand, yes, we absolutely understand that there is a progression of consciousness, that you hold one level of consciousness, then often there is some sort of catalyzing experience that potentiates the next level of consciousness. What needs to come up to support the allowance of the holding of that comes up. You work through it, you hold it a little more steady, and then the next potentiation, on and on and on. So, in that sense, yes, there is a progression. But the question came, what if there's actually no progression? And I
Where
loved
you
it
like release
because
that idea, right? Like,
exactly.
yeah.
Like, what if you release the idea of progression, right? It takes the pressure off, it takes out the idea of the linear structure, and it allows this greater movement within the field, it seems. Like, it felt like a beautifully expansive question. And then along the lines, it's like, what if it doesn't matter? Like, who cares? Like, so what? Like, and that's kind of where I am now, where it's like, I am committed. Like, I am here. I will always be a student of whatever it is I'm meant to be a student of. And I will always attend to whatever it is I'm supposed to attend to. And I'm going to be shown along the way. And there's no way for me to miss it. And like, I don't care if I ascend. Like, I don't care if I have to do this 47 more times. Like, I don't care. Like, it actually like does not matter, And like, how liberating is that, right? Like, it feels like there's so much more spaciousness and like more room to play. Because I'll be honest, that's really what I'm interested in. I'm here to play. I'm here to have fun. I'm here to be in joy and light and have a damn good time while I do it. So I think that's why I'm done trying to be first, because I don't care.
Yeah. Shameless plug. I did my group session a couple days ago,
Hmm.
and I channeled for a group over Zoom, and one of the things he talked about, it was a really dense teaching, and I don't even remember the fullness of it, but what you're talking about reminds me. He says he uses different words like awaken, enlightened, ascend. He doesn't really use
Hmm.
ascended much, but just different words to mean someone who's awake, who's in alignment to the divine. And he goes, it's not the responsibility any of you think it is. You think it's
Hmm.
some grand responsibility to be the awakened one where you then have to stand upon the mountain and you have to
Uh-huh.
yell down to everyone and
Hmm.
trod the way and cut the grass and have them come on up behind you and like lead the way. But he's like, what if it's something different? What if it's
Hmm.
just releasing everything and being guided to where you need to
Hmm.
be each moment? What
Hmm.
if you will be exactly where you need to be when you're there?
Yep.
What if you're speaking exactly what you need to say when you're there? What if you know what to say, not because
Hmm.
Tom is like so smart that he knows what to say, but because, the universe seeing
Hmm.
as you knows what another needs to hear because it's another too. It
Yep.
knows what another needs because it's the other person too. It knows what
Yep.
everyone and everything needs because it's already that. And I think that's a really like beautiful and revolutionary idea. And I think if I was to have, a critique of a lot of modern spirituality, it is
Hmm.
there's kind of this taking on of responsibility, like I'm the one or we're the ones and we're gonna
Yeah.
do it, and
Hmm.
again, like you're saying, this idea of like the progression, we're gonna fight the darkness, we're gonna progress
Hmm.
against, or further
Hmm.
along and lead the path. And it's like, well, what if that's not it at all? And that's not to
Yep.
say those are bad ideas, right? Like they're needed at times and could be helpful at times.
Hmm.
But to me, it's really far more interesting. What if I'm in this place where I always am just where I need to be? Because how
Hmm.
could I not? The universe is
Yeah.
always looking to give more love to itself. And so
Hmm.
if it could be through me because I'm as clear as I can be, well, then it can
Hmm.
offer something to someone else
Hmm.
because I just become a vessel, let's say, or you become a
Yep.
vessel, or anyone becomes the vessel for the greater consciousness that already knows what's of highest benefit. Like the thinking
Mm-hmm.
mind doesn't. It could have ideas, it could be close, it could,
Mm-hmm.
it could, but
Yeah,
sometimes the ideas get in the way. But,
often.
consciousness knows often, yeah,
Often. Well,
often.
and that's totally aligned with like everything that's been coming through in my sessions, group and individual. And this a couple of things again, let's see if I remember both points by the time we get there. But the first one is like, thinking about like the progression of consciousness, right? Like understanding that yes, there is no progression. It doesn't actually matter, while simultaneously, yes, there is an expansion of consciousness, right? Like, and it's cool because we get to this point where we can see both the astral field that like everybody lives in and the higher octave. And that's where, I find, we get a little sticky sometimes here because it's like, well, there's all this contradiction. Like, how can this be true? And it's like, I realized not too long ago, like paradox is only paradox depending on the level of consciousness that you're looking at it from. And when the field starts to open up and you start to be able to see like all of it, then the work becomes reconciling these contradictions and like having space for like allowing all of this to exist simultaneously, because it does. And none of it is wrong, and none of it is bad, and all of it is expanding and growing. So that was the first thing, and I don't remember the second thing.
Well, great first thing. We don't even need the second thing.
Garbage.
The first thing was so great, the second thing didn't even
Second is
matter anymore.
irrelevant.
It's funny that makes me think. I was playing around with a draft of my book, and I dropped into to Claude to AI, because I was kind of curious, like, what would AI think of this like channeled
Hmm.
book, and like, I asked it a couple questions, and it was interesting because it has like a bird's eye view of the text, and I've read it a
Hmm.
couple times, but it's so I don't, it's
You're in it.
it's yeah, you're in it.
Yeah.
It really just has its own flow and momentum. But um, I asked AI, I was like, are there any contradictions in this
Hmm.
book? It was channeled over the course of like 8 months, and I didn't even remember one channeling to the
Hmm.
next. So I was kind of curious, and I was poking around, and it was like one of the things said. It was like there's this seeming contradiction between you don't need to do anything in
Hmm.
spirituality. You're already there and worthy.
Hmm.
And there's a level of discipline, there's a level of engaging with yourself, there's a level of engaging with the world. And it was funny because it was even like, on the surface, this seems like a contradiction. And, to some readers, they might read it as such. But actually, I think that's a part of the teaching, like this complexity. And
Hmm.
I fully agree. And I think it was interesting to see it pointed out and worded in that way of this thing that was kind of, zoomed out from the book. Um, but it is like an interesting, what a funny and beautiful paradox that we're already it. We're already
Hmm.
worthy. We're already source that's come. And yet at
Hmm.
the same time, there's still work we need to do. There's still engagement we need to do. We need to sit with ourselves. We need
Yeah.
to learn from ourselves. We need to learn from others. We need to, have a clear vision. We need to be of action in the world. And so, yeah, the paradox isn't, it's something to be embraced because that's where the learning occurs. And you realize, oh, I can make the clay pot without being there, being the one making the clay pot. I can
Hmm.
just be in the action without the doer and it's being done.
Hmm. Yeah, it reminds me of in esoteric healing, we work in triangles and often like in circuits, balancing points. But
Mm,
there's a protocol where there's a triangle of being and a triangle of becoming. And we often
mm,
work with these together. And, usually when we're working with these, I'm holding an intention or a focus to allow. So the triangle of being, this is like the recognition of all that you already are. And it's working with the part of you that really recognizes the true eternal nature, right? So it's like bringing part of you, or bringing you into the awareness of the part of you that operates outside of time and space. And then the triangle of becoming supports the primarily the
Mm.
personality body in lifting into that space of being. So I don't know, that's just what came to mind there with that.
Is that like the like Metatron's cube, the like one triangle pointing up, one triangle pointing down
Not
kind of thing?
exactly. No, but that is actually a representation of the spiritual triad. So if you think of the spiritual body as the triangle that points down and the personality
Mm.
body triangle that points up, when we become the soul infused personality, those two triangles come together and it's represented through the Star of David. So it's the same kind of idea.
Very cool.
Hmm.
Very cool. All right. Well, we are getting towards the end of the episode, but I thought it might be fun, might be interesting. Maybe it won't be fun or interesting, and then I just delete this, and then no one ever knows.
All right, cool.
But hee hee hee, that's what we can
Uh-huh.
do when we
Yeah.
have the editing power.
But like, have we ever actually edited anything out of these? I don't know, because I don't know how to edit it.
I I always say that I will, and then I get to the like video editor, I'm like, oh, it's so much work if I have to edit this, and then I'm just like, done, publish.
Yeah, you get what you get.
But in theory, editing could occur.
It could
Um,
happen.
but one thing I think would be fun to kind of introduce and also engage with the listeners moving forward. Obviously, we can't do it this episode because no one knew this was happening because it's been
True.
2 years. But uh,
Surprise.
I think it would be fun to maybe ask each other questions and try and tap into our guidance and see what we get. And I think what we're going through individually, both me and you, but also each individual is all tied together. And so I think there can be great value in that. And then I'd like to invite listeners to write in, to put
Hmm.
comments on YouTube or to email in. And if you have a question for one or both of us that you want answered to, whether it be, from us, whether it be channeled, whether it be the in-between thing that Leena does, she gets information from everywhere. I don't even know. She's pulling it left and right and it's front and center. But I think it could be a fun way to engage some of this higher guidance we have access to, and also, bring some questions in from people that I'm sure are right along with us on this path. And
Yeah.
um, I always find it interesting the correlations between what everyone's kind of working with and
Yeah.
through.
I'm always fascinated by that too in session. Like people that like from different like parts of the world having like completely different life circumstances, often working with very similar or the same like threads of energy. Like I'm always fascinated by that. And that actually has like led me into like studying, not studying astrology like, like real astrologers do, but like really an interest of like looking at these larger influences and really saying, wow,
Mm,
it's cool how we're like riding these waves together. And like from that I've been playing with these like energetic field notes, just kind of like feeling out into the field for the month and like, oh, what are the frequencies that are coming in, like how is that kind of playing here. And it's wild how, I don't know, it's just wild, like it is wild what is available to us. So I love
yeah,
this idea.
yeah, and
So
I think it helps stretch, right, this muscle we have, all of us, of
mhm.
of connecting to that and tuning in. And
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what I was thinking as you were sharing is like, really like the beauty of us kind of tapping in, it becomes like a potentiation for other people who may be interested in also like refining that skill of their own. Because, we're not doing anything that everybody can't do. Well, that's a weird sentence, but you know what I was trying to say, right? We're not doing something that other people
Yeah.
English good.
Everyone could do this.
Yeah,
You
totally.
know, everyone's got different ways, or I would say pre uh pre-skills, that's not a
Mhm.
word, but like uh,
Natural
in
strengths.
natural strengths, right, of how they can get this information
Hmm.
and what works for them. Um, and that's, I think, the beauty of it. But everyone has access to this, right? Like
Hmm.
that much we know. And so, yeah, totally
Yeah.
agree.
Cool. So are we're doing this tonight or not doing this tonight? Are we starting tonight with this?
Sure. Why don't
Okay.
we do it with each other? Does that work?
Yeah,
Start
sure.
start tonight. All
Do
right.
you have questions?
Um, I have a question. I have a
Okay.
question, and I'll keep it both like general and specific. Um,
Okay.
well, I want it to be applicable to other people, not like,
Well,
hey,
general and specific. Yeah, okay, great. I love this for us. Let's paradox.
like,
Here
damn
we
it,
are.
Tom. First episode back, and you're already annoying me.
Nah.
Well, so recently I've been more and more aware that I've held a feeling of grief throughout my life, and it's appeared in
Hmm.
different ways. And I think, especially, childhood, kind of moving on, I learned to put a wall up between me and that strong feeling, that strong emotion. And so now it's time to sit with it again and bring that wall down and feel that and let it move and let it lift. And so, how do I and how do we work with emotions that have, kind of solidified, that have been with us for a long time, that we might have, um, you know, like I almost don't want to feel it because it feels like it's been there forever. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know where it would go or,
Hmm.
and so I think when we have things that feel big emotionally or whatever, how do we work with that? How do we address those?
Hmm. Okay. Who's going to answer this?
It's like, what direction is this coming from?
Bueller? No, just kidding. Actually, the thing that actually is the first part of the answer to this is if you can get to the point where you can decide it's okay to hold this lightly, then it gives you permission to allow it to come up to be attended to. Again, it is the recognition that things are not what they seem, things are not what you think. There's also an invitation to recognize the inherent safety of where you sit now. It is safe to address these things that feel heavy. There is nothing that you will not be supported through. And when you recognize the support that is available to you, and you say yes to it, decide that you are safe, decide that it has permission to move, that you have permission to let this release from your field. That's a great place to start. Okay, there's more to this. Yes. Okay. Actually, there is more to this, but it looks like it wants to come through in a transmission. And I feel like I should explain this first before I weird people out who have not heard it.
I think you should explain it after.
Okay, fine. So,
Let it be
yes,
weird,
we like to
man.
transit. Yeah, I know. Um, Yes. Okay. 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 Is there anything that I need to hold while we do this? Yes. Okay. So we're going to allow a little heart fire to come through. So this is going to be open and available for anybody who is wishing to receive this transmission. This will actually support the relaxation of the things long held, the things held tightly in the causal field. So the intention to release or soften the grip of things held in the past so that it may flow out of the field. The transmission begins. Sialan kian sheniro shenirian and yera seniri ala chineno patia caneram, kala sheniro chini inian gediaram, pagino locariara sesenian, kala sheniro chitino pariara and inian yerekitina, kala sheniro chinina niarakini dianum, buruncinuro sesochinina ketira, ala shenu nuro chitilian yerekiti dianam para el eurochinira kianira. Salanira chenuro kara chitinia kanira sesenira la shiti indira balaniru nuru shunirea kandi titina tira chiduro pare ankatara ala shinu tunira niram pachinulo ke andi tisinira nakatara palaniramba chinira katida la shinuro pare yaranchit kaniram kanuru shunuro panina nira chitira katiro lotiro pare ranam Kala niro chitira se seni kanira alla niro shiniro ba ashitira kalanchi nira katira amba nira kalatira. There's a lot of like movement with that. Okay. Hmm. So, those of you listening at home, you may have felt that. You may not feel it as it works. Okay. That is the light language. Um, I was very unhappy when it started coming through, and I've come to appreciate the beauty of how it is delivered because it works, it transcends the lower mind to help move energy, works with sound and frequency to kind of get into these little spaces where we otherwise sometimes have resistance. So and I find it's almost like they're sometimes like chants or like prayers or like
Mm.
sections of repeating like mantras or something. And I also find that even though most people to the ears it doesn't make sense, to the heart or to the soul it totally does. And so that is always my big invitation with the light language is, come with an open heart and open mind and let it work through your field because it's kind of amazing the way that it shifts things for people. So,
Yeah.
okay.
When you're working with the language, I almost see it as like, see you or it or both as like this medicine woman, just like throwing stuff into the fire and exploding and just speaking like in tongues and just moving the energy of like everyone around and like, just these ancient traditions where there used to be, that elder that was so connected and knew
Mm,
the tongue of the universe and it didn't matter the words that were being spoken but the tonality and the movement
mhm,
um and so I always appreciate that visual and feel it so much when you
mm,
do it this way, so it's
mm.
awesome.
Thanks. That's a cool visual. I had like, I get like flashes of other lifetimes sometimes, and I have seen that picture that you're talking about. It came up as you were sharing it, so that's funny.
That's so cool. I love that. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Whew. So let's switch gears so that I can ask you a question now.
Fun.
Um, okay. Okay. Here's one that feels like it'll be helpful for everyone.
Okay, is it
Um,
general and specific?
I mean,
You can do whatever you want. I don't know.
kind of, yeah. So it's like there was a thing that came up for me the other day where it's like I felt like I'm not getting what I want. And from a certain level, I know that that's okay and that's not actually a requirement. But there was also a feeling of like my personality body really hanging on to this idea of what I want. And thankfully, it has just shifted since then. But, we tend to spend a lot of time there. So if there's anything that we could offer,
First thing you may know about this is there's actually a difference between want and need and being able to sit in and express yourself. The expression here is the important part. It's not necessarily the want of the moment or that wants exist at all, but the movement to understanding yourself as an expressive being who deserves to be heard, felt, and understood. As each of you works in relationship with others, and it can be anything friendship, partnership, someone walking by on the street, you have a right to speak your mind, to speak from the place of the heart that does want things, that has preferences, that's allowed to be in its expression and choice in the life that it lives. And also, you may know yourself as a being that isn't firmly gripped or attached to the outcome of their wants. This is the important distinction here. You understand that who you are, how you wish to be in the world, how you wish to express your passions, where you're in expression, who you're within expression with are all vitally important, and yet you're not attached to the outcome of the wants. This is to say, you may want the coffee, and then when you get to the register, realize it's a day for tea because it's something you feel in your heart, and you order the tea instead, just to have the one who you always had a crush on come up and talk to you to say, wow, I love that tea. How do you like it? This is to say that your want in any moment for one drink or another, for one desire or another, for one form of expression or another is valid and important because it is a part of you. What you are not doing is attaching to your ideas of wants as necessity and outcome, as something that must be achieved or received at any cost, or your idea of want as who you are. You may understand that your wants and desires pass in but a moment, but your ability to speak them, to be them, is vitally important. And so you are not attached to the idea of what you want in a moment, but you do understand your own right to be, your own right to choose, your own right to speak, and your own right to be as yourself in your life as the most active participant. And others must respect you at this level as well. This does not mean you force another to respect your wants or to respect what you are saying. You cannot choose for them, but that is to say you respect your experience so much first that another has to make the choice to either meet you at that level or not. And then you get to decide based on how or where they meet you if you want to move forward, how you want to move forward, or if there's another choice to be made. We hope this is a helpful answer. We thank you for the question.
Hmm, thank you.
So I guess my turn to say the spiel. I'm not used to like you just going right there.
Hmm.
So it's good practice for me to do
Hmm.
that. But my work is channeling. I also do some energy and Reiki work as well, but my primary work at this point has become channeling and I channel Yeshua and that was a whole big surprise. And we don't have to get into that whole thing, but
Hmm.
uh, it's directly kind of received energy and channeling. And of course, the words are important part of the teaching, but it's usually the
Hmm.
context for the energy that comes through.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I do find that that really is the meat of the teachings, like always. The meat of the answer is always the energy that comes through. And so, one of the fun things that people listening may notice is like, whether you're, well, I mean, I guess everybody catches the replays since it's just you and I here, but when, if you were here with us, you could probably feel the energy. And even if it's like happening across time and space, like there's access to the energy. And I wanted to bring that up because while you were channeling that, it felt like there was work releasing at throat. So we were like pulling energy out of
Mm,
throats. I don't know whose, I don't know where, I don't know when, but congratulations on the
probably
release
all
from
of
your throat.
ours.
Probably. Yeah. And I do always appreciate too, like I feel like, even as we come to these conclusions of like the questions that we ask, like because I came to an appreciation for the question that I asked, this morning, and it is very much in alignment with what was offered now. So it's always nice to have that confirmation too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm glad it was
Yeah.
helpful in confirming of,
Hmm.
your
Yeah.
experience here.
Yeah.
All
So
right. Well, next time it could be your question, listener, that also gets answered. Um, and we sure hope it is. So write in the comments or email or DM us on Instagram, Facebook. I don't know, the things. Um, yeah, anything else we want to do or say before we wrap up here?
man, this feels like it was pretty robust. Like not bad for a first pod back.
Yeah,
Like
we did good. Not to pat myself on the
you
back and yourself on the back.
it's nice too though. Like I feel like we always work really well together, and it's fun to kind of like after having this, break where we've really been kind of I want to say like honing the craft, like it's nice to come back from this different place as these people that we are now and see what we get
Attending to a
into.
lot of life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, kind of happened over the last 2 years, but I think and we are
Yeah.
all the better for it. So thanks for staying subscribed, those of you who didn't cancel or whatever. Yeah.
You knew that 2 years later, another one was
We'd be
coming.
back.
You were right.
You were right. So, thank you guys for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing this with people who could benefit from what we're offering, because that is the point of this. The point of this work is to allow it to spread the light as far and wide as is possible. And I know 2 years ago, we certainly would not have invited that because we were both giant chickens. And now
Now we're
we don't
big
care what
roosters.
we are big roosters and we do not care what people think. So thanks for being
Indeed.
here.
Some final housekeeping notes I should probably mention. This will be on YouTube. This will be on the podcast distributors. So you can watch it on video or you can listen audio on all the normal suspects of where you get your podcast. I will also be doing more like social media push. So this will be I'll probably be posting clips of episodes to my social media, which is Instagram, which is at channeling Yeshua. And so you can find some of this stuff there. You can find some of my work there. And then I'll also be, yeah, YouTube, connecting YouTube, um,
Mhm.
all that kind of fun stuff. What about you, Lena? Where can people find you?
Man, I don't know what my social media is. I've not done a really good job with that.
I know it's
But
tough. I'm
you
getting back
know,
into it.
yeah, so I don't know. I'll figure out what my Instagram is later on and maybe one day I'll check it. But my website is lenaoconnor.com. So you can find stuff there. And
Yeah. And I'll put
yeah.
both links to our websites in the description so it's easy to get to if anyone's interested in booking a session or anything like that, just
Mhm.
connecting, of course.
Yeah, and there are always opportunities for group sessions. Tom and I both offer them.
Yeah.
And one of the things we were entertaining is coming back around for some joint group sessions. That'll probably be a lot of fun. So,
Yeah,
yeah, we're gonna
absolutely.
put it out there and that'll kind of commit us to it because it feels really like a really fun idea now from this kind of elevated space. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So, either one of our websites, I'm sure, will
Mm-hmm.
have those as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like I said, those will be in the description. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thank you. This was fun. It was good
Yeah.
catching up. I hope everyone at home enjoyed it, or maybe you're not at home. Maybe you're somewhere else.
Yeah,
It's the
wherever
beauty
you
of a
are.
podcast. It could be anywhere. It could be on the top of Mount Kilimanjaro for all I know.
Take it
Um,
everywhere.
all right, friends and family, have a good night, everyone.
See you next time.